Hello people of the internet, my name is Lucian and welcome back to another Warframe guide video. Today I'm doing something different from my normal build guides, because instead of a build guide like I would normally do, I'm going to be doing a general build guide. Basically I'm going to be going over the process that I use to get the builds that I make. And I will be showing the entire thing to you guys today. I will be using as my examples Nidus, my flagship frame and my best frame that I've created, and Valkyr, mainly because they are the two frames I understand the absolute best. So, let us jump right into this. We will be looking at Nidus first. So, the first thing you need to determine when you are about to make a build is what kind of frame you are running. The three kinds of frames that I have mainly, the classification of frames that I use is hybrid, tank, and ability. Examples of those would be a tank frame is, and when I say tank, I mean like just pure tank. No abilities, just, they can tank using just what they have. But as a tank, that would be Inaros, because he has extremely high health and extremely high armor. An ability frame would be Ember, who is completely based off of her abilities, and hybrid frame would be Nidus or Valkyr, the two frames that I happen to know the best. So, once you've determined what frame you're using, in this case, hybrid, you have to figure out what are you building towards. So you may be using a hybrid frame, but usually they lean one way or another. For instance, hybrid Valkyr usually will lean towards high power strength, whereas Nidus would lead towards more armor and health, and slightly minimal power strength compared to what most builds would have. So, let us get into the mods. So, when modding, you need to be aware of how much capacity you have to work with. Usually, in my opinion, it would be a good idea to go with Steel Charge, because it gives you a full extra 4 slots to use for capacity, which can actually mean quite a bit. After you've put in that and you've gotten your aura mod in, you need to figure out if there's any limits that you have. And when I say limits, I mean, is there any point, so when you're running a hybrid frame, you need to know what ability stats do you have to be able to reach. And if we take a look at Nidus' abilities, we will in fact be using Parasitic Link, which gives him damage redirection, which is incredibly useful for staying alive. And the limit on this is that we have to reach at the very least 180% power strength to get the maximum use out of Parasitic Link. That is the minimum power strength you need to reach 90% damage redirection. So, let us do that first. Now, the way you get to it doesn't really matter. Personally, on my build, I found that it's very easy to reach just by doing this. Coincidentally, for my version of the build, this also gets me my health and armor decently high. So, after you've done that, and after you've gotten your power strength up, you need to work towards your armor and health, because they will be your secondary stats. Usually I would go with one mod for each, with possibly a extra mod for health or armor, depending on what you want. I would usually go for health. And the one that I use for that is Gladiator Resolve. But you can also put on Gladiator Aegis, or pretty much any mod that you really want. It just depends on what you prefer to have. Now after that, because we are working off of our Parasitic Link, we have to figure out what else do we want to put on it. And one of the things that it is lacking in is range. Only 40 meters for ally, which isn't bad, but only 20 meters for your enemy range. That is incredibly low. So, let's give it a bit of an upgrade. So, we're going to go over here. We are going to get ourselves Stretch. Stretch is an incredibly useful mod. It adds 45% range, Not much more you really need to say to that. So, let's take a look at the ability has now. So now we're at 29 meters of range. Still not too high, but it's respectable enough to be usable in an active combat situation. Now, after you've done that, there's one last thing we need. We need a way of generating energy to be able to use our abilities. So you can, depending on what you pick, usually you can use Hunter Adrenaline or Rage. I, for my build, have to use Rage, mainly because I have no more capacity. I do not have the capacity to stick on Hunter Adrenaline. That is how specific my build has ended up being. So I use Rage, you can use Hunter Adrenaline, it really depends on what kind of build you're using. If you're not using your Umbral mods, you should be okay. But after that, that's pretty much all you really need. Alright? Honestly, the basic build looks something like this. Alright? 180% power strength, something to regenerate your energy, and then health and armor. That is the general build for it. After that, nothing else much really matters other than what you personally want to use. Now, in the end, for arcanes, once again, it comes down to what you want to use, but personally, I would go for an increase in damage and health regeneration, because even though Nidus has 15% heal rate, although why that is a percent, I don't know. Just kind of strange. It should be only just 15 heal rate. I'll probably put in a report on that later on to have them fix that, just because it's getting on my nerves. I don't like that. But let us go take a look at Valkyr. So Valkyr as a hybrid character, we'll just remove everything so we can start this from scratch. So, once again, Valkyr, base stats, looking pretty good. Determine what kind of frame it is. Valkyr is in fact a hybrid frame, as I stated before. And because of the high capacity costs on the mods that I use, we will in fact be using Steel Charge once again. Now, let us take a look at her abilities and determine what we will be mainly using. For a hybrid build, everything looks pretty good. Hysteria has high energy cost, so we probably wouldn't use that for a hybrid build. But Warcry is an interesting ability. So we will probably be building off of Warcry for the increased armor and speed. So what do we want to reach for this? Well, first of all, one of the things you should probably look into is what kind of modifiers you have access to. When I say modifiers, I mean these. We have an Eternal War augment. So what this Eternal War does is it allows us to have well, it's exactly what it says. While active, Warcry's duration is increased by 2 seconds for each melee kill. So we stick that on there, and suddenly we don't have to worry about how much energy we have, or our duration for the most part. Which means we can build solely for power strength. So let's just do this. So what do we have? Alright, so already we're at 293%. It's pretty respectable, but we can get better. We can get a lot better. So on top of being good for armor, we need to have high armor to be able to run this. So, still on this, and this. And suddenly, we're looking pretty good. Now, this is the general build that you need. Now, it is recommended to run some kind of duration, but it's up to you. Personally, I'll run an adaptation for more resistances. And I will also run a, where is it? There it is, Augur Message. For more duration, giving me a pretty respectable build, but the general build should look like this. High strength, low efficiency, medium level duration, high armor. Health doesn't matter that much, but it comes as a bonus when you're using the Umbral mods. Personal preference. Once again, Arcanes, same thing. It really comes down to your personal preference. They won't really affect the build, but I do highly recommend running Arcane Grace because Valkyr does not have any good forms of healing other than her Hysteria, which just so happens to drain her energy like some kind of child that eats energy. Just bottomless pit. Now, this is general, so take this all with a grain of salt. It does come down to how well you understand that frame, and as I said, these are two frames I understand incredibly well. It is recommended that you go online and look up other build guides. You can look at mine and other people's and just figure out what the general trend is and then build off of it. And once you've gotten all that down and you've figured everything out, you can test out the build in the Simulacrum if you have it, or if you don't, you can also use the Sanctuary and Elite Sanctuary. So, if you guys enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I will be doing several other videos like this in the future. I will be doing some on farming, basically farming builds, where to farm, what to farm, etc., etc. I will also be doing one on Fashion Frame, right? Because I know apparently that is a massive part of the Warframe community for whatever reason. I really don't know or understand, but I guess you guys do you, and I will see you all in the next guide.